Tomorrow, President Biden will host a summit at Camp David with the leaders of Japan and South Korea, two nations with a long, complicated history. But they, along with the United States, share common goals: curbing China's influence in the region and addressing threats from North Korea. Tomorrow's summit will deal with military cooperation, the sharing of intelligence, and technology development. Joining us for more on the goals of this summit is Rahm Emanuel, the U.S. ambassador to Japan. Ambassador, very good to have you on the NewsHour. This is the first Camp David summit of the Biden administration. Can you give us a sense of what goals the administration would like to see coming out of tomorrow?
Sure. First of all, it's the first Camp David kind of summit. It's called the Camp David Principles. Not only the first time these had the foreign leaders up there, but it's also the first time actually just for the three leaders, not on the side of a G7 meeting or on the side of a NATO meeting, but to meet as three leaders for the purpose. So this is inaugural. One of the outgrowths of this is going to be an annual meeting. So it's not going to be driven by events. It's not going to be driven when the schedule works, but it's going to be driven for the purpose of the three countries coming together, meeting, and making that a new norm, so to say. Second is, you talked earlier in the introduction about security. There will be pieces on, obviously, intelligence sharing, on integrating on certain systems and more coordination and making them seamless. There'll be annual planning for military exercises, trilateral, and then the execution of those across multiple dimensions and skill set. All that is one level of deterrence. So there'll also be greater coordination on cybersecurity, economic coordination, supply chain, energy, healthcare. So there's a big, robust piece of this that will be on the political front, the security front, and the economic front.
I mean, concerns over China's role in the Indo-Pacific region will obviously be a main topic. What specifically are the concerns of the Japanese and the South Koreans with regards to China?
Well, both countries, starting in 2010 for Japan and 2017 for Korea, both have been victims of China's a very aggressive economic coercion. That has happened to the Philippines. That has happened also to Australia. So both have been victims and targeted and had economic coercion applied to them. In the Senkaku Islands for Japan, regularly intervention in for Japan by Chinese ships. When Nancy Pelosi's trip was done, China did a series of activities around Taiwan, and they threw 5 missiles into Japan's EEZ. There's a series of other things they've done as it relates to Korea. So both on military level, security level, cyber attacks, economic areas have been a target of China's aggression. I mean, let me just say this, when you look at India on their border, you look at the Philippines recently on the Thomas Shoals, China's not going to win this year the Good Neighbor Policy Award. And everybody in that region has been in one way or another targeted militarily, targeted economically, targeted on economic coercion, targeted in their own security areas or economic areas and their own geographic areas.
Is there any concern that you're hearing from your allies, from your colleagues, that while the Biden administration could enter into these agreements, the next administration, which could be a second Trump administration, can just undo them? Isn't that a real concern?
It's not about that. It's to ensure that there's a new normal. There's a new standard. It's embedded into, for lack of a better way of saying it, it's embedded into the DNA of all our institutions in all three countries. You have to give kudos to Prime Minister Kishida, President Yoon, for the courage they have shown in kind of leaning into this against some political headwinds. President Biden, to think about this, 6 weeks ago he was in Vilnius, Lithuania, brings Sweden and Finland into the NATO family. 6 weeks later, at Camp David, he's bringing Japan and Korea into the kind of strategic formulation. Both are major diplomatic efforts. And the goal is to actually see we have more in common. I think everybody realizes future generations shouldn't have to spend political capital. Let's get this to the higher level, lock it in, lock it down, and run up the score. And that's what this is about.
But there isn't any concern that, however substantive tomorrow is, that a subsequent administration could undo them if they wanted.
That's true for all the countries. So the goal here is to make sure that it's so wedded and so embedded where you're spending time, you're spending money, you're spending resources, that it becomes the new norm. And I think both, I don't want to speak for them, they're the heads of state, that's a question you can ask them, but I think everybody acknowledges they don't want future prime ministers, future presidents of either Korea or the United States to spend the political capital to get to this. I can tell you, having worked for two other presidents, both Democrats and Republican presidents would want to be where President Biden is. A lot of administrations have worked towards this. This is an amazing accomplishment because it reorders not only the three countries, but most importantly, it is a new fact on the ground in the Indo-Pacific. There's a risk for everything like that, but for all three countries, that's why all three leaders are determined to literally get this woven into the kind of grain of the wood of the institutions, whether that's on the military side, the intelligence side, the defense side, the training side, the economic security side, the supply chain side. That is to make sure that it's on, for all three countries, a fact.
Ambassador Rahm Emanuel, U.S. Ambassador to Japan, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you, William.